Good morning, students. Today we are continuing our last lecture. In the last online session we have seen the barriers in the process of communication, and in that also we have seen the process of communication and different types of communication. In the process of communications there are 8 steps involved, okay, and in those 8 steps, if the communication is according to the process of the communication, then obviously there may not be any problem in the process of communication. There will not be any difficulty in the process of communication. But in case of why we are talking here regarding the barriers of communications, when the barriers are supposed to come, or when there are the barriers in any process, that barriers or that problems may be in the process of coordination, maybe in the process of communication, maybe in case of decision making also. But here when we are specifically talking about barriers in the process of communication, as we have seen also that there are different types of communication: oral communication, written communication, verbal communication. There are different kinds of communications: supervisory communication, interpersonal communication, okay, grapevine communication. These are the different types of communication, and each and every organizations, they are adopting a specific kind of communication according to their need and demand of the business, okay. But in the continuous working or in the process of this communication, there are certain difficulties, certain hurdles which are arising in the process of communication, and exactly we are discussing here the barriers of communication. Now these barriers may be of different types. Here we have bifurcated these types into 5 to 6 parts. First is linguistic or semantic barriers, then it is psychological barriers. These psychological barriers are also known as emotional barriers, and why these barriers are coming in and which type of communication they are arising, that we will see. Then personal barriers, then we will see the organizational level barrier, and then mechanical barriers. So these are the different kinds which are divided according to the process of communication, we can say, or in specific type of communication these barriers or these difficulties are facing or these difficulties are faced by different organizations. Now we will come to the first, that is linguistic barriers or semantic barriers. So as we have seen in our earlier videos that language is one of the code for communication, okay. With the help of language, with the help of symbols, with the help of signs, different kinds of communication, in that process what are the different problems are arising, that is what is exactly called the linguistic barriers in communication. Now poor quality of message, the person who is sending the message, we have seen in the process of communication that sender is one of the important person who is sending the message, and while sending these messages, okay, the quality of message makes a lot of difference. Whatever the message, whatever the idea is supposed to be passed on, or which has to be exchanged between two persons, between sender and receiver, the quality of that message means, what do you mean by poor quality of message? It means the language you are writing that must give the exact meaning for the message of communication. जो भी message, whatever the message the sender is sending, the quality of that message means, keep it short and simple, we have seen. So what exactly he or she wants to say in his message or her message, that must be of good quality. So poor quality of message may create misunderstanding, and to avoid that misunderstanding, the quality of message should be good, it should not be of poor quality of message, and due to that poor quality of message there is a chances of linguistic barrier. Then faulty transmission, the transmission means the exchange or the communication when it is the a specific message or specific information is in the process of communication, okay. Sender has sent the message, okay, he has encoded, then he has sent it with the help of channel or a specific medium, okay. So there should not be any faulty transmission, it should be properly sent, properly forwarded to the sender. Then lack of clarity. Again, this is somehow related to quality of message. Whatever the language you have chosen, whatever the message you have written for the written communication or you are using for the verbal communication even, that must be a clear message. It should be simple, it should be short, at the same time it must give the exact meaning of the particular topic. जो भी topic पे you are communicating on any topic, that should be clear, simple and short. Okay, and if it is not that, then it becomes a barrier in the process of communication. Then technical language. Many times when for example we will take Z company who is in the process of any production of any material for production of chair. Okay, in that process, in that particular company, if the technical person who is at the engineering level, whatever the language he is using for passing on the message, for sharing the exchange of the message, that should be. So language should be technical. In case of technical department, when the engineer or the person who is responsible for the technical data or related to his or her field, in that case the language should be easy, simple and clear. Although the language is technical, but it should be understood by the receiver, the sender who is sending the message. But whatever the message is going to be sent, okay, that must be according to the requirement of that particular idea. Okay, then there are psychological barriers, or these psychological barriers are also known as emotional barriers. Now the person who is sending, who is in the process of communication, okay, in what state of mind he or she is at that time of in the process of communication, that also makes the difference. Okay, and that is why in case of interpersonal communication, we have seen there are two or more persons who are exchanging the ideas, views and knowledge for the process of communication. So in that case there are chances, in case of interpersonal communication, there may be a psychological barriers. The chances of psychological barriers may arise in case of interpersonal communication. So what is important in that? The attitude and the opinion. The sender who is sending the message. Okay. At these points, see what are in every barrier, you will find certain points are written, and these certain points, they should be improved. They are given that may be the point, a kind of barriers, but how the sender can overcome from these barriers. We are here discussing the barriers and different barriers which are arise in the process of communication. So in psychological barriers, attitude and opinion of the sender should be good and should be according to the situation of the particular exchange of information. Then inadequate attention. The sender who is sending the message, whatever the the message has been passed by the manager. If he is not in his proper mental condition, or he is not in his he is not giving the proper attention, then that may become the barrier, inadequate attention. So he should properly attend, he should take the proper information from the manager or his supervisor, so that the inadequate attention should be removed from his side. Then poor retention while listening the message. If you are not giving the proper attention when the teacher is in the class, okay, students are not paying attention, they are not attentive. In that case, what will happen? They will not able to understand the topics which are going to be discussed in that period or for that subject. They will remain behind and they may not be able to score good in the exam. That is a simple example for poor retention. So what should be done by the sender? He should give proper attention. Poor retention should be removed. Then under stress or undue stress on written message. Many times the message or the idea which are in the process of communication, okay, every time it is not necessary that the company or the business unit should adopt the written communication. So written communication takes time. We have seen in the disadvantages of the written communication. What happens in written communication? Written communication takes time. In spite of that, if the company follows or if the employees are using verbal communication, so verbal communication saves time. Okay, you are just giving the symbols or signs for the communication. But written communication में what happens in case of written communication? Undue stress on written communication creates emotional or psychological barriers. Now, lack of trust. Okay, this is on the part of employee. Employee should trust to the person with whom he is sharing the knowledge. For example, he has said to his employee or the secretary that such and such is the email, or he or you should have to pass on to the other party. So he must trust to his employee. Okay, and if he is not keeping the trust, then what will happen? Lack of trust may put that particular employee on in a problem, and that may create a psychological barrier on that particular employee. Then failure to communicate. If the persons who are in the process of the communication, if they are not able to communicate, they are filled in the process of communication, then that is a emotional or a psychological barrier. Then personal barriers. Okay. When we have seen the supervisory communication, if you remember, we have seen supervisory communication. In case of supervisory communication, the supervisor, the manager or the person who is on the top level, okay, he is a communicator. In that case, the attitude of the supervisor, attitude of the manager must be proper, or he should pass on the information. Okay, manager and the person who are on the top level, what they are doing? They are giving the messages, okay, they are telling their employees to distribute the information, or they are giving the orders according to the requirement of their work. So at that time, attitude of the supervisor is also the barrier. If he is not giving properly, he is not passing on the information properly, obviously the message is going to be sent to the sender, will have some another meaning. So that attitude should not be there, so that this barrier may be reduced. Then lack of confidence. Lack of confidence on the part of employee or a manager, on the part of him. If he is not having the confidence in the process of communication, that is the personal barrier. Then lack of awareness also. Okay, he should be aware while giving the instructions and information to his fellow staff or to the his employees, so that he should remain aware. At the same time, their employee should be aware, and this barrier may be removed. Then hesitation in communication. Many times it happens. If there is a lack of confidence, then what is the result of that? Hesitation in communication. So the persons who are working for that organization, they must have the self-awareness. They should develop their qualities, and hesitation in the process of communication may be removed. But hesitation in communication is one of the part which is related to personal barrier. Selection of wrong channel of communication. Obviously, we have seen there are different channels or mediums of communication. Email hai, telephonic conversations hai, websites hai. These are the different examples of the communication process. हमने देखा है channels. They are the different channels through which the message is passed on. So selection of wrong channel will put the employee or the sender into the problem, and that is included in personal barrier. Then fourth is organizational barrier. Which one is organizational barrier? And what are the points considered in organizational barrier? Restrictions imposed by the employer. Correct? Restrictions. If in the organization, if the manager is putting n number of restrictions on the employee, okay, he has given the job to him that you have to write this particular email, and in that email it is the job of the secretary or the another employee to whom that job is distributed or delegated. But if you are putting lot of restrictions to that particular employee, then he or she may not be able to complete that work, and that becomes the barrier for the employee or for that staff. That restrictions imposed by the manager create a organizational barrier. Rules and regulations of the organization. If the rules and regulations are very strict and very high, so what will happen? Communication process will have a adverse effect, and improper communication process will result into the क्या होगा वो organizational barrier. Complex situation of the organization. Okay, this is one of the point which is discussed under organizational barrier. The situation, complex situation of the organization. Every organizations have their certain rules and regulations. They have their specific orders. Their job profiles are different, and accordingly, many times the employee himself feel complex. that situation may be complex for him for the process of communication. Then mechanical barriers. In mechanical barriers, inadequate arrangement for transmission of message. Means transmission of message. If the message is going to be sent by which channel? By computers. Means computer say via email, the employees are going to send the message. But if that system is not working properly, okay, the machine for the transmission of message is problematic, then what will happen? There will be a barrier in the process of communication. The email which supposed to be sent by 10 a.m. will be sent by 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Means the work is going to be delayed due to this barrier. So inadequate arrangement for transmission of message. Everything should be at proper place. It should work according to the requirement of the time. Then choice of communication channel. Again it is the same. Selection of a wrong channel of communication. So choice of communication channel makes the difference. Okay. Oral communication ki requirement. Where is the requirement of oral communication? Where is the requirement of written communication? That must be clicked by the manager so that it saves the time and the work is done according to or within the time. Then defective procedures and practices. It is same as rules and regulations of the organization. If the procedure and practices are defective itself, then it is a mechanical barrier in the process of communication. Then use of wrong medium, same thing. Selection of a wrong medium, use of wrong medium. The thing which is going to be sent by email or which should be informed through telephonic unnecessarily. If the employee is wasting his time in writing that email, what will happen? The use of wrong medium. Or whatever the process, why there is a need of communication process, it saves the time. It gives the the work is done with the proper communication easily and smoothly. But if the employees who are working in the organization, they are not adopting or they are not following the proper channel of communication, proper type of communication, obviously that is going to affect on the work of the organization. So these are the different barriers we have discussed in this topic or in this session, and in the next we will see what are the difficulties might be faced by you. You can directly send your messages, okay, so that your queries will be clear. In the next session we will start our next unit. Thank you.